Good afternoon, good morning, welcome, good evening to the Women of BSV. And in this episode, we have Ruth, Korppi, Casey, myself, Diddy, and our special guest today is Nidhi Arora, who is the Marketing Editorial Specialist at CoinGeek. And she's written some wonderful articles about the Women of BSV. So I wanted to invite her on so that we could have a chat and introduce her to our little audience and say thank you very much as well for paying attention to our videos and for doing the articles that you have, and to introduce you to everybody that we kind of know. So welcome, Nidhi, and thank you for your time in joining us.
Thank you so much, Diddy, and hello, everybody. It's absolutely my pleasure, and I have been following, your episodes and whatever you guys have been doing in this space, and it's really inspiring. So thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. That's really nice of you. Thank you. Would you like to? We'll go into a bit of history because we love going in deep, sort of delving into people's past and kind of finding out a little bit about yourselves. So you had a career as an investigative journalist. So do you want to give us a bit of a background story, your background?
Oh, I would love to. That is literally one of my most favorite parts of my life. So I started as an investigative. I actually started my career as a copy editor in India after graduating from a journalism school back in 2008. And that is the same year when I started my career in journalism. So I started my career as a copy editor for a newspaper called the Tribute Group of Newspapers. It is actually the top leading publication in North India till date. And it is actually a 135 years old newspaper, very old. Yeah. Wow. And but then eventually when I got into that field, I actually love to research and dive deep and really figure out where the loopholes, why things are not working how they should. And so I really, really like to get into details. Like I have a natural knack for being fair and fighting for fairness and just figuring out and balancing both the sides. So I've always been like that. And I started really observing the emerging trends and really seeing, what was happening all around me at that part of the country. And I remember I was working on sports desk, and cricket is a very big thing in India. Mm. So I was working and I was proofreading this story, and basically India hosted Commonwealth Games back in 2010, and the entire city of New Delhi was revamped, to make sure that we were able to host the games really well and to just welcome everybody, all the international athletes. And this is just one example. So, but then when I started reading about it, I found out that a lot of people were basically robbed off, their homes, which we call homes, but they were actually slums. There are a lot of poor people in India. So they literally washed away like miles and miles of locations, and people became homeless just to make sure that the Commonwealth Games took place in the way that the country wanted it to be. So it's great for all the athletes and all the international delegates and guests, but the real people were suffering. So I have a knack for really observing trends like that and research and then dive very deep and doing stories on them. So sports kind of became one of my main beats. And then I had a talk with my editor-in-chief there that I wanted to be a full-time investigative reporter. And I had done a lot of stories by then, and he really liked the idea. So then I became a full-time investigative reporter. But that is how it started. So I did a lot of research into loopholes of the sports department of India, and also the state, like at a state level and at a national level. And oh my God, like the facts that emerged were heartbreaking, very disappointing, and very concerning. And I did an investigative story in three parts about the corruption that was taking at a state level, which included the director of sports of India. And he was actually suspended as an impact of my stories that were published.
Wow.
And that was very scary because
Yeah.
I was not hoping, like, it was not like I was like, like rooting against him, but I was just doing my story. But the story came out and the facts, like, were discovered. So, yeah, he was suspended and the assistant director was also suspended, and they both had to leave their jobs. And I got some threats. I did. Because, stories are published with bylines. But I really, really enjoyed it. So that was my career as an investigative reporter. Yeah.
Gosh.
Oh.
Gosh. How brave as well, because I mean that's a big organization
Yeah.
to uncover corruption in, really, isn't it? So hats off to you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just felt it was very important, and it still is. These are like never-ending issues. And I'm sorry to cut you short, but I would just like to add a little thing here. So, of course, corruption, but then some things which are like very, very, very normal, like which are accepted very, like conventionally and in a very like easy manner. People really don't worry about it. Even if they do, they really don't raise any voice against it. So, for example, like terrorism has actually gone down in India, but I grew up, to be honest with you, when I grew up in India, like every year we would have like a series of bomb blasts around, the festivals, like in the crowded places. My parents would always tell me and my siblings, don't go to a mall or don't go to this fair, or like things like around Diwali, which was the festival of lights, because it was expected to like see some level of terror, around that time. So I remember, as a result of a lot of bomb blast, there was like a directive given at a national level that if you enter any crowded place, public place, there are basically metal scanners. You know how we have at the airports, right? Because everyone has to go through that scanner and they test, they check the bags and so on. So I was visiting my friends in New Delhi, and we went to like the biggest mall in New Delhi back then. I'm talking maybe 2011. And so I passed through the scanner. I had like a big bag on me, like a backpack. Nobody checked me. No one. So they just let me go. And then I had like two guy friends in the same group. Oh my God, they frisked like, them like head to toe, like literally, even if they were not carrying any purse. And my other girlfriend also could just go through the scanner and like without, like she being checked or anything. They didn't ask me to open my bag, nothing. And then so situations like those, would just like keep my mind rolling. And then I'm like, oh, I have to do a story on that, because I went back to the security people and I said, you didn't check my bag. Like, why? And they're like, no, 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 we know. And then I said, what do you know? And then, like they were starting to get like a bit rude. But I said, you didn't check my girlfriend's bag. You didn't check my bag. Like, is it a gender thing? Like, what's going on here? Because how do they know that females cannot do anything? So things like that. And then I did a story on that. And yeah, action was taken. So after that, they became very strict about checking everyone, a male or female. So things like that always encouraged me to write stories. Yeah.
You had a lot of influence.
Yeah, I was going to say, that must have really taught you a lesson in how much influence one person can have. I mean, that's a huge thing to learn.
Content is very powerful if you use it the right way. I think content is very powerful. And print or digital, words really matter. Yeah.
They do. They certainly do. Well, it's great that you've ended up in BSV then.
Yeah.
How did you find your way Sorry, Diddy.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, because at this point we're in India, aren't we? So
Yeah.
and you've transitioned over to the States, and so that's I want to know about that story. And then does that actually, is that actually related to the BSV? So was it because of BSV, or was that a different story altogether, leaving India anyway?
Yeah, it was entirely different. I came here because I really wanted to live abroad and see how I like it. US was never on my list, but it just turned out that way. So my job brought me here, and then I thought, okay, let me give it a shot. And I ended up working here, and then I ended up liking here. And I earlier thought, okay, I might go to Canada or I might go to Europe, but then somehow I just built a life here, and I'm here. And yeah.
Were you still working for the Indian papers at that time, or would you kind of become a freelance journalist?
So I came here while working for an Indian newspaper, Tribune. But then my contract was getting over, and there were a lot of visa struggles. As you know, like visa is a big deal here. And it was becoming more and more challenging. So I got into IT as a communications analyst. And I worked in the IT sector for more than 4 years here as as a communications analyst. Yeah.
And are we allowed to know what company that was for? Or?
Yeah, sure. No problem. So there were different clients, but I worked for Capgemini Invent. I was working for a company called Liquid Hub, which was acquired by Capgemini in the end. But I had like different clients. So one of my clients was a law school admissions council here in the US. And then I worked for a pharmaceutical company. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to reveal their name. And
Okay.
then there were like, some retail clients like Walmart and stuff. Before that, I was with a company called Wolters Kluwer. It's basically a legal digital publishing company, very, very old company, again, more than 100-year-old company. And I worked in their content management team as well. That was one of my most favorite projects, actually, in the US. Amazing team, great work. But having said that, I always knew I would get back into doing my full-time content or journalism job, because I know that is where my heart is, and I know IT is not something I really wanted to stick to for my whole life. Yeah.
So is that how you came across BSV then, through sort of doing research through the IT sector?
Yes and no. It's an interesting story. So while I was working at Liquid Hub, which is now Capgemini, I was assigned one client back in June 2018, June or May, I guess. And I ran into a guy called John, and who's now my husband, John D. Felice. He's actually the CTO of Slictionary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Small
So
world.
John and I were, yeah, because John was working there too, and we met each other. And but then yeah, he told me about BSV in 2019. That was the first time I had ever heard of BSV. And yeah, and I saw him literally leave his job and like full-time transitioning into BSV space as the CTO of Slictionary, because he and John Pitts have been friends for almost 25 years.
Right. Yeah.
Known each other almost their whole life. And so yeah, I know Pitts, and of course I know my husband now, who was my boyfriend then. That's how I got to know about BSV.
That's phenomenal. We
Yeah.
had John Jack Pitts on our show a bit
Oh,
back.
we love Jack Pitts.
Yeah.
Slictionary is a brilliant.
It is a very, very intriguing and a very brilliant business idea, which they are really working hard on. Yeah. And so he just told me about BSV, but as you know, like my background, I did a lot of research, because I'm like a very cautious person in general as an individual. Like I don't just jump into spaces which are very volatile, because I like to like tread my paths carefully. But when I really got into the details and I did a lot of research, and I remember coming across a job opening, which is a marketing editorial specialist. And then I found out about this job and I applied and I was interviewed for it by the editorial team at CoinGeek. And that's how I got in.
So when did you start with CoinGeek?
I started in March 2021. It's been a little over a year.
Congratulations on your
Thank you.
first year anniversary.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
They're lucky to have you. Do you have any like writing rituals that you do before you sit and do a piece, or anything you do to get yourself ready to? Because copy is hard. Writing the kind of way you do and articles and that. I mean, you have to have a lot of focus and be able to sit down and really, formulate your thoughts. So just curious.
It is, and actually writing for CoinGeek or for any digital space is very different than what I used to do for a newspaper. Because I used to, everything has become like this digital bubble now. So I was very used to going out, meeting people, doing ground research, and like really getting on the ground and like having the ground running, and then write, and then sit and write. But here, no rituals as such, Casey, but I have to say that's a good question, because there are times when I really hit a writer's block. I'd only heard of it, but I see that happen to me now. But what really helps me is walking. So I usually go out for a walk, and I live on the East Coast, so sometimes it's very cold. You really cannot go out, but then I just walk in my house, and I usually walk and like I'm formulating my thoughts in my head. And I sometimes just take notes on my phone, or I'm very old school. I still like to write with a pen and paper. Oh my God. Like, honestly, I don't think anything can beat it ever, even 20 years later. Yeah. So I usually jot down my notes on paper, and I walk and I formulate my thoughts. And then I just know. Sometimes you just know. Sometimes it just clicks and you just sit and write it. And usually I do a draft and then I fair it up and then I submit it for publishing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I was going to say, in this day and age, it can be quite difficult to hear your own voice, I think, sometimes. There's so much coming at you all day long. You know what I mean? To just be able to center yourself and find what you want to say about something is quite a challenge nowadays. Do you find that technology has changed your way of working much over the years, or is it just sit down, knuckle down and...
I think it has changed the way of working entirely for content writers / journalists entirely, because there are so many people I would like to meet in person and sit and talk and then do a story, but that's not how it can happen right now. So, for example, even this call, I wish we were doing it in person. But
me too. You guys could be here.
Yeah, right.
We could do it on the beach.
Yeah. So Ruth, to answer that question, it has definitely changed, but there are pros and cons. There are also advantages. Like, for example, it has given a lot of flexibility. For example, I could talk to anyone, anywhere in the world. And it has definitely broadened my horizon, I would say, rather than just being limited to the periphery or the vicinity where I live. But since I'm very old school, I do miss certain aspects of the traditional media writing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what do you make of the BSV space in general? I mean, is it welcoming? Is it exciting? Is there enough to write about?
Great question. I think it is beyond exciting. It is very intriguing to someone like me. There's always something going on. And I frankly think there will always be something going on for years to come. There is a lot to write about, a lot. I don't think there's any dearth of content or ideas or prospects. I think it's an incredible technology, incredible. Of course, there are challenges because we are seeing a lot of, I feel like right now there's just too much misinformation. I personally do not like Twitter. I really wish I could increase my visibility on Twitter. I try. I personally just don't like that platform. I don't know why, it just runs me down mentally. I like some other platforms, but not Twitter as such. Yeah, I think BSV is a very, very good technology or subject to write about.
Do you use BSV applications yourself? We have Twitch, the version of
yes.
So are you on
What's your username?
I am on Twitch, and I have used Tonic Pow only a couple of times. And I add the words for Slictionary as and when I can. I used to do it a lot when they had just launched. I was actually their #1 wordsmith at one point. And
you're the one that Jack keeps talking about, the #1 wordsmith then.
what does he?
Not for anymore, actually. I think someone else is now.
It is someone,
taking over.
Yeah, right now it's not me. I think there's a guy called Hussein now.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a hand cash handle, which I used to use a lot, but not right now. Actually recently I've been involved a lot with a new project at CoinGeek, so that is kind of consuming all my time.
Now, is this the Indian?
Yes.
Okay, so would you like to explain what you're doing? Because this sounds really exciting, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. And so this is right now I am building a content strategy for CoinGeek India. And the goal is to spread awareness and to promote BSV as a brand and as a technology in the Indian market. Yeah. I think India is an exceptionally well-suited target to really utilize BSV application. I'm almost finalizing the content strategy, and we will be implementing it very soon. We will start rolling out the content probably by end of April, and there's a whole schedule, and we have certain social channels we are going to target, because it's amazing to me. You wouldn't believe. So most of the crypto or digital currency investors in India are from a very young demographic, very young. Like I'm talking of 16, 17, and 19-year-olds.
Wow.
Yeah. And I actually just did a story on it. It's on CoinGeek. So Indian teens are majority of the investors of digital currency in India. And as you know,
do you have money to spend on investing?
Yeah, right. That's why. Like I was wondering, and then I spoke to these 4 kids, and I spoke to a couple of parents. So they are using their pocket money. So pocket money, the money that parents give to kids to like spend on the things they want to. So some of the kids have saved that money, and they are beating their pandemic boredom by investing in crypto. Wow. And they're making tons of profits on it. And actually 2 Indian kids, 9 and 13-year-old, they are mining crypto in Texas.
Yeah.
And you read that? And they are making up to $30,000 a month.
How old? So,
9 and 13.
9 and 13 years old. So
they got like free energy or something. That's crazy.
So every media house in the US have basically published their story.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. So their dad. So when the father saw what the son was doing, he basically took a loan, and then they rented a data center in Dallas, in Texas.
Oh my goodness.
So the father is helping out the son, who has trained her. The son has trained the sister, who's 9-year-old. And so they both do that 5 days a week. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I'm very jealous. I'm going to introduce my son to these kids.
Yeah, and actually, I will be talking to them. I'm talking to them on June 8th. I want to interview those kids and do a story on it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So getting back to India, very young demographic, and they are very, very keen on learning about, digital currency. Of course, it's more, everyone is treating it as a speculative asset, clearly. They just want to trade and make quick money. That's the main focus. So I think BSV is a very good technology to transition into more of a, serious technology-driven space. Yeah. And there are so many ground problems in India that something like BSV can definitely address very, very quickly. Like, for example, let's take an example of Slictionary, right? And here, it takes a lot to encourage a kid to add a word and to earn 1 BSV, for example. But the same value in India is a lot more as compared to the US. So $1 is 75 Indian rupees.
Yeah. It's much more of an incentive.
Yeah. So I was talking to my cousin's son, who is 15 years old, and I asked him, I said, would you like to earn this much money by adding like English words to an app? And he's like, oh, I swear, he got so excited. He's like, oh my God, that much? And here, oh my God, like I don't think John and Jack like can really get that kind of response that easily from a 15-year-old in the US. And same, I think Cent B, it's developing markets are a very good target for BSV.
And this is a really good way of spreading the wealth around the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's also an amazing way to create a recession-proof business.
Yes.
For people that like, no matter, you're global and you're hedged everywhere. So if one country goes down or one currency goes down, you know, have that advantage. So that was one of the reasons I was building an offer in this space. So you can, you know, completely global. I love that, not having to worry about the currency exchanges and all that stuff.
Yes, yes. I think micropayments is a very, very useful component that should be utilized in India and similar countries. Yeah.
Can I ask you this question? This is something I was thinking about today due to some Twitter thread, actually. Why do you think the micropayments have not been used by the big newspapers yet?
By the big newspapers?
Yeah, you know how a lot of newspapers, certainly in the UK, are paywalled, and you have to take out a subscription, and basically you don't, because I don't want to spend 75 quid a year or something just to read the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But I would be very happy to pay 10p to read an article.
Yes.
I mean, this is an application I think that's sort of crying out for BSV or the likes, something that could work as equivalently well at micropayments. What do you think their barrier to entry is? Do you think they just don't want to? They don't think there's enough people own crypto yet, or? I mean, what are the challenges? Because I know newspapers industry tends to move quite slowly on taking up new technology.
I think there was, I mean, I really, it's a very good question. I haven't myself researched a lot into it yet. But from my understanding, I think it's the volatility that exists in this space is probably keeping them at bay from even getting into this. And I really don't know about sorry?
I was just going to say, you know why the big newspapers aren't using BSV? Because they're all owned by...
I was just wanting to get to that.
I mean, it might be some other crypto, though.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know about international newspapers, but I'm thinking of Indian newspapers. Yeah, they will, most of the newspapers, as Casey just mentioned, they will not get into a space which is evidently not being supported or, promoted by the government of that country. They are not going to get there, except
one has to get the official nod first.
Yes.
When you follow the money all the way to the top, there are no governments, there are no countries, and they own all the media and the whole world. So
Oh my God, they do. There's this one
country you're in.
Yeah. There's one newspaper in India called Times of India, The Times of India, and I did an internship with them. I mean, I know I just mentioned their name, and I think that's okay now, but frankly, every news in that newspaper is paid. Every. There is no organic content whatsoever.
It does feel like that.
Yeah.
When I read even British newspapers, it feels like it's all paid.
It's okay. There are, I think, I mean, in my understanding, there are only 2 newspapers in India I still think are standing their ground, and they are doing real journalism. And of course, that's why they don't get funded that well.
So do you think that those particular papers, though, that are actually, the grassroots and are doing the real journalism, do you think that they would take on a technology like BSV because they would see the benefit from it if they were approached in the right way by the right people and shown how that technology worked to be able to help them?
I think they would definitely be open to it. Yes. Yeah.
I wholeheartedly will tell you, one of my first targets once we get this video sharing technology is James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. I totally want to get him and all of the independent journalists that work with Project Veritas information about how to monetize their content. I mean, independent journalism is going to blow up once people realize that they can do this. It's not very monetizable yet. I mean, in the current model. So the way that we're revolutionizing it here is going to just create so many more people like you and all these people out here that are trying to tell the truth regardless of who employs them.
No, I think that's a great idea. In fact, you guys just gave me an idea for my next story. So I need to research more into it. I think it's a very good idea. And the 2 newspapers, Diddy, that I was mentioning in India, I mean, I have one resource in one of the papers there, but I would definitely like to have a chat with him and find out more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a very interesting conversation as well, I think. And especially if you could, kind of show them the light of how, explain it in such a way that he can actually see the bigger picture and see where that would take them in 10 years' time,
Right.
Yeah. And it's such a huge market, India, as well.
It is.
It's a high-tech place too, isn't it? India? I always get the impression that there's a heck of a lot of programmers in India.
Oh my God, yes. A lot. In fact, I think I always knew that, but I can confirm that after living in the US for 9 years. I mean, you go to any organization, the IT and the science departments are completely populated by Indians and the people from China or Korea or, like Vietnam. Yes, absolutely. IT is the thing. STEM is a very, very, I think it's one of their strengths probably. You won't believe when I migrated to the US and if I run into anyone till today, when I run into anyone and someone's having a chat with me in a grocery store, in a meetup group or anywhere, they assume I'm a software developer. They just assume it. And then I tell them I'm not, like I'm far from it. So it's very rare that you find people who are non-IT and are from India. Yeah.
What about the NFT market? I mean, have you got a feel for what that's like over in India at the minute? Because obviously that's taken off hugely, in especially art and music as well. Which I mean, Bollywood.
I'm glad you brought that up. That is one of the very important target market we are going to focus on while implementing the content strategy for Indian market. So Bollywood is really getting big on NFTs. Unfortunately, they are, using not their own chain. They are mainly into BTC. And so a lot of Bollywood actors have joined hands with Binance. And the largest crypto exchange in India is Bazaar X, which is all BTC. And so they have joined their hands with them. And they are monetizing their, like just pictures, images. They're mainly JPEGs, to be honest with you. And NFTs are taking off in India. They are. So that is one segment we really want to target through BSV. Comedians. Stand-up comedy is taking off in India like never before. Yeah, like never before. Comedians are finally, like getting a place where they are respected and they're getting a lot of, like gigs and they're being paid well. One of my very close friends is a very, very good stand-up comedian in India. So I usually chat with him and he will be one of the influencers I would like to use to promote BSV on Instagram, on his Instagram handles.
I'm all for trying to make some kind of asset that's just super funny and, a marketing little video that you can use to share that explains BSV and the history that's funny. Like make it, awesome. Like Melissa Rochelle or the guy you're talking about, somebody doing like a skit that can go totally viral. That's just hilarious about all this nonsense that's happening. I mean, I'm not the one to write it, but I know somebody has it. It's going to come out soon. I mean, the content's there. There's so much to make fun of.
Yes, there is. There is.
Joke that crypto is right now. And I know there's a lot of people that have made money, but that's besides the point. There's just it's like hilarious. Just the scams and I can't believe I cannot believe people are this dumb. I really, I mean,
I think
It's hard to get through the misinformation, though. To be fair, I mean, there is a massive tsunami of misinformation out there, but we have to dig our way through
I mean, dumb is like I don't mean to call people dumb, but like the investor that just goes and throws money in it and does no research about anything and then loses everything or whatnot. I mean, it's happening like crazy.
Completely. I agree with you. It's insane what's going on right now. And in India, it's a very distorted it's a very distorted view of the whole, digital currency space right now, because what the government just announced, like heavy duty taxes on crypto in India, and they finally, they finally signed it. So it's a bill, and it has become a law. It started from April 1st. And they are making it harder and harder. So at first, everyone was very happy that, oh, okay, thank God the government didn't ban it, because, there has been a lot of like scare or whatever was going on, like, oh, Indian government might completely ban it. But then they came and announced that they will be imposing a 30% tax on digital currencies. And basically they put it, they have added it to the same, what do you call it? The same bracket as gambling. Exactly.
So
same.
Is that a capital gains tax, or is it a tax at the point of spending, or what?
It is a capital gains tax.
30%'s a lot. Are they doing the unreleased capital gains as well? I mean, they were talking about
unrealized.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Unrealized capital.
Yes. And not just that, they are also 1 second. It was that, and the other one was, so on crypto gifts, if someone gives you a digital currency as a gift, beyond 10,000 Indian rupees, so the recipient will be charged a tax on that. So they are making it very, very hard. And
it's pure theft at the end of the day, isn't it?
It is.
Really.
So I don't know. I mean, again, this was one of the story which I just did like a few days ago, and it's live now. Some people are saying it's good because it has become a big speculative space, and people are going nuts. Everyone's just buying crappy coins and just selling them everywhere. Like, quick money laundering is happening. But money laundering is something I've heard, but I really don't know to what extent. Like, in my personal opinion, I think that's a very lazy way of the government to control the people. I mean, if there's money laundering going on, you should not be punishing everybody, to be honest. You should kind of be able to track those people who are doing it and then punish just that segment. But yeah, it has been imposed. So people.
Don't you think this makes even more of a case for BSV though? Because like with BTC and ETH, the fees are so high that by the time you pay the transaction fee and the tax on it, the whole thing becomes a bit pointless.
Absolutely, it does. So, sorry, Casey, go ahead.
Someone needs to build a business. I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure someone would, that can pay the average person like me, instead of being a fact checker, we can be like a pedophile tracker or a money laundering tracker or whatever all this money getting pushed around and all the crypto space is like doing with its criminal behavior. It's blockchain, right? You can track all of it. People think that it's not, but you can. So like, we need a system that empowers the individual tracker.
Like and then a Bitcoin app, but for
there is
don't go after the person or anything, but like, you know how Facebook and all their George Soros hired all those fact checkers to be all over, Facebook, controlling their narrative or whatever. Like, if there was a business model that enabled kind of like independent journalists can go and monetize their content with micropayments, there should be some kind of way for the general public to help, because obviously they don't have enough people to be tracking all this stuff.
CoinGeek,
create that.
CoinGeek New York, the one that just went, I'm sure the guy from the FBI did say that there was a course that was available that people could do, which would actually teach them how to actually be able to track and trace and become So there is something available. I know that's the CoinGeek New York thing. So if you go back and troll through the videos and you get to the guy who's talking to the FBI guy, listen to what he was saying, because
there's probably plenty of people, just as many left people that would go and be a fact checker. There's just as many that would go and be like a,
forensic accountant.
Especially because there's so many people out here that do realize there's so much crime and criminality, and the authorities just can't keep up with it at this point. There's so much massive influx into this space, they can't track everything, and that's why it's running rampant. But if you get a whole bunch of the general population paid to help in some way, I mean, I think it would help clean it up a little faster. It was just my idea.
And I think this space is like becoming it is becoming highly unregulated. When I use the term unregulated, I'm not talking about seeking control from like government authorities. But what's happening in India right now is, so the cricket leagues are happening, and the PR companies, the exchanges basically are, doing deals with these cricket boards, and they are basically advertising their coins, like BTC or Ethereum, and they are giving them money to do that. And like the Bollywood biggest celebrities, a couple of them actually were their brand ambassadors recently. And
they have such huge influence as well over people.
I found out that those two exchanges spent $7 million just for promoting their blockchains during that cricket league. And Indian sports industry has a lot of money. Actually, the board of cricket control of India is the world's richest sports body.
Wow.
And they have a lot of money. And so what my concern is that they are misleading people with wrong information. They are influencing kids to invest in things that they should not be doing at this age, to be honest. And it's not healthy. It's really not healthy. And I mean, recently the Indian government also, just released a 12-point advertorial guidelines. So if anyone is advertising a certain crypto now, they have to keep in mind these 12 points. So for example, you cannot use kids under the age of 18 to promote. You cannot use their image or use them as a prop to, promote something. There's a clear text that has to go with every advertisement. If celebrities are, promoting a certain brand or a certain blockchain, they have to do their due diligence. They cannot just publish misleading information. So I know they are doing all that, but I really don't know how useful just these advertisement guidelines end up being in the end. Like, for example, smoking. I really don't think that putting warning signs on smoking packs like cigarettes did any good, to be honest with you, as per my research. In UK, I remember they like published these like horrible pictures of lungs.
Yeah, there used to be some really disgusting pictures. It didn't stop people from smoking.
Yeah, it was back in like 70s. And when I did my research, no, the number of people that were smoking didn't go down just based on that. But you know what really helped? The heavy taxes and a complete ban. Those are the only two things that really helped. So
it's so expensive to smoke in the UK now that most people don't.
Well, it's about £12 a packet, I think.
Something crazy.
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes. But right now, I think there's a lot of hue and cry going on, especially since they have announced the taxes. We'll see where it goes. Yeah.
But it may focus people's minds on trying to find the most useful chain node rather than focusing on BTC. Because if the quick, easy gains are gone, then maybe people will focus on actually how can this be used to improve this industry or whatever.
Absolutely.
Which is what it should have been doing in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, and think about the food. I think of like street food in India. Street food industry in India is so big. Like in every nook and corner of the country, you have like food carts. Or, like the chai, which I know is known as the chai tea all over the world. Chai, you find chai every nook and corner in the country, and everybody drinks chai. I mean, I don't know, hardly there are people who don't drink chai in India. So chai sellers, I feel like they could be like, like transacting in BSV easily, because you can't do that in BTC. You absolutely can't do that.
Yeah. And I get the impression in India there's a lot of disparity in income. So you've got like quite rich people and really poor people, and you know what I mean. So from that perspective, do you think BSV is more of a cryptocurrency for the poorer end of the population in India?
Absolutely, yeah, it does. In fact, I don't vividly remember, but I know that Dr. Wright, I think he was in Colombia. He actually spoke about it. He said that BSV is very good when it comes to poor countries like Colombia and India, and like places like that, Bhutan, because, for example, look at like agriculture, right? Farming. It is a very, very big segment of factor of unemployment in India. And farmers are so poor, poor. Every year, there are more than 50,000 farmers who commit suicide in India.
It's horrible there. Do you know Vandana Shiva?
Yeah,
Vandana Shiva, that activist. God, I love her. Yeah, I watched her. I'm gonna name drop the documentary because it's amazing. Genetic Roulette: The Gamble of Our Lives. She did a piece in that documentary about genetically modified foods, and a lot of it's about the food supply in India and all that stuff. But she's one of my favorite people.
She's a powerhouse.
Yeah. She's amazing. So
I would love to see that documentary. Thank you.
It's great. Yeah, definitely watch that one. If you eat food, if you're a human being and you eat food, watch that documentary.
Thank you. I definitely will. So to Ruth, to answer your question, I think BSV can help a lot, and farming is or should be probably the number one segment that BSV could get in and really get in from there, because farmers are truly suffering in India. They have been for a long time, very long time.
Yeah, that's by design. That is so by design.
Even in the UK, honestly, it's very bad here now as well.
Well, I'm just thinking there's a network called Wolfing, Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, and each country has its own, but it's all these organic farms that you can go work trade at. So I'm just sitting there thinking, I spent 4 months in Big Island of Hawaii going to multiple different permaculture farms, and the markets and the ability for people to actually sell their stuff with BSV would be so much better. I love the idea of empowering the individual farmer. You're going to pay your doctor or your farmer, and the powers that be and the systems are all designed to funnel the money to the doctor. So we have got to restore the individual farmer's sovereignty. And
when you realize that you can actually buy, for example, a seed or something maybe for 1 cent, and that's actually you're only going to have a fee of 0.00000 whatever fraction, which is absolutely nothing, then that's when you see the power of it completely. Like you say, with BTC, there's no way that you could actually transact a cent at a time.
Transaction cost is so high. And in a country like India, where there are so many people consuming food, so many, we are 1.4 billion people there. I think an agricultural marketplace based on a BSV enterprise blockchain is the absolutely perfect business model. Which makes sense and which will do so much good to farmers.
There's the supply chain aspect of it as well.
Right. Like Unisat.
We need to get in touch with Vandana Shiva.
Yes.
We need to try and find that lady.
I fully intend on getting this technology we're building to all these activists and these individual people that can help, shift the. These are the perfect target market for this and the technologies that we're building, because it'll just allow them to flourish and stop being so stifled and censored and cut off from all that stuff.
I do have a question though. How receptive are the farmers in India to technology? Because do they all have mobile smartphones? I mean, because they are really poor, so how do we reach these people in the first place?
It's a very, very good question, very relevant. So most of the people in India have internet. They do. Even very poor people have access to internet.
And through a smartphone.
So one of the things Ryan was talking about was, obviously building this and then an exchange and also a miner. But one of the things he was talking about with the exchange was that, the public, the average person should be able to open a franchise like place and be able to accept their local currency in exchange for BSV. So what have you heard? I mean, anything about enabling people to kind of do local Bitcoins thing? That BTC has a network like this where you can buy from the individual or whatever. You guys, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I do, but all I know is I have heard that I mean, eventually what I think is going to happen is, so I know the Indian government recently released their own national blockchain document.
Okay. Wow.
So my biggest concern when it comes to India is that even though BSV has very good fundamental use cases that we can definitely help the Indian country with, but I think in the end, it's just going to be one blockchain that is going to thrive there. And I really don't think it's going to be BTC because the government is not going to like the high, transaction cost. They are not going to be happy with it. But I don't know why, but I'm apprehensive they will come up with their own blockchain.
Probably.
But even if they do come up with their own blockchain, I mean, aren't the patents that N-Chain have got, they would literally have to use Craig's technology to be able to build on in the first place. Yes. So there would be an advantage there for BSV in the respect of it is BSV patented technology that they would be using.
Yes.
So they would probably have to build on top of BSV because it does, the scaling.
Or pay a fee, Diddy, I think. I mean, they might just
one or the other.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm very happy that we are not. I mean, I'm of course, I really, really wish and hope, and I think eventually that BSV price is gonna soar, and I really wanted to because I think the price matters. But I think it's a very good thing that we are not part of the limelight right now, and I'll tell you why. Especially, I'm only talking with regards to India, because what will happen is when right now they are in limelight for the good things, right? When things are really gonna hit the roof and they are not gonna be in good books anymore, the Indian government will go against not just one but all of them. But because BSV was never a part of that, that core group, which is like being famous on social channels and all over the world right now, or like the price is going up. I think BSV will stand out as the good as the good boy.
Gives time for the developers to actually build.
Yes. And probably that'll be the time when the government will kind of inculcate or build that trust in BSV. I know, Casey, I have not quite answered the question you asked me, but I don't know, my mind just digressed into sharing these details.
No, it's okay. I really think there should be the ability. Localbitcoins.com, I think, is the one that you can actually buy from an individual, so you don't have to go through an exchange. Ryan was talking about enabling people to own a franchise, and you can open up a shop and be your own Bitcoin exchange for BSV, and just allow the public to come in and exchange their cash for Bitcoin.
It's tricky though, because the governments really have to be tolerant of it, because otherwise you can find your bank account gets shut down and things. So
of course,
it's tricky.
Because you're being
there's huge investment to get it all set up, but at the end, that's how it should be structured, so that people that have a food stand, if the person that comes up to them doesn't have BSV, they can then facilitate them getting it right there. And I mean, we all know it's super fast. It's download an app or whatever, and you've got it, and then you walk away with your fruit or whatever, So, but enabling the individual farmer or whatever to be able to be that exchange is so necessary if we're going to get this out in the way that the general shopper at a farmer's market can use it.
Mm-hmm. I think
there's got to be some simple device, you know what I mean, that can just be on the counter that does it all or something.
No, I think that's a very good point, and I think that is possible in India. And it's been how many years? So I would say 2016. So 6 years ago, any digital transaction with the local hawkers and sellers, the vegetable or fruit sellers in India, was not possible. Right now, so I visited India actually in November. After like over 6 years, I went to see my family, and I was shocked to see the level of digital payments that is being done now in India. So I remember my mom actually bought like some produce, like in India, like the vegetable and fruit sellers literally come to your door, with fresh produce, and she buys them every day from them. So she was buying those fruits, and actually she made a digital payment to him. And I'm like, wait a second, what just happened here?
Mm-hmm.
Because it has changed. So everyone, like, we have Venmo here in US. So I could send Casey like $50 right now through an app. So there is something called Paytm, Paytm in India, and you could just send rupees through a text message.
Nice.
Is there because Venmo is just US based, because I tried to get onto that and it's US based, and the one you just mentioned for India is just India based, I'm imagining. So this is where BSV comes, the power is there, because we need these apps to try completely. So hand cashes, and Semphi are completely on that wavelength.
Really.
Came to Brazil and I don't even know how to pay for anything. Like, I look at the prices of everything and it's like 59,000. I'm like, what? So it's very confusing.
No, remittance is a very, very good market to tap into for BSV in India. Extremely good. 17% of Indians migrate abroad every year.
That's a huge amount, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Every year.
Lots of money getting sent home.
Yeah, compared to 3% from China. So 17% is a very big number. For example, I'm here, like sometimes I send money home, like if it's my parents' anniversary or it's my siblings' birthday, I want to send them something. And usually I just send money so that they could buy a gift for themselves. And I have to pay a transaction fee each time I send them money.
And that transaction, is that like a bank transaction fee that you say you're doing it through bank to bank?
It's not bank. So I don't do bank to bank. I use an app called Remitly. And so that app,
money wiring.
So that app charges me a transaction fee.
And how much is that?
Sorry?
Like what's the percentage of the charge that it?
They usually have a flat fee, so I usually pay them $5.
Okay.
For example, if I'm sending, let's say I'm sending $500. So I would pay $5. So what percentage would that be? 1%? Yeah, 1%. And but if I'm sending a higher amount, if I'm sending $10,000, although I have never, but I think they charge you a lower amount. But the lower the amount is that you're sending, the higher the transaction fee is.
Which is so wrong, isn't it? It's like it's expensive to be poor.
I know. It is so wrong. But I think it comes from the Indian culture. Most Indians send money home every month to their parents, every month. And they pay the transaction fee every single month. And so I think remittance is one segment. BSV can do a lot of good.
Huge savings, Nidhi, can I ask you, am I right in remembering that at some point in the last few years, India withdrew big portions of the currency? Is that, am I correct in remembering that?
You are.
Overnight, they called in a lot of the currency.
Yeah, the new prime minister.
Just what happened there?
Yeah.
What was the reason for it?
So so the new government of Narendra Modi, when he took the office, he overnight withdrew certain bills, 100 rupee, 50 rupee, 200 rupees, and 500 rupee. So those bills were completely withdrawn overnight. literally
And
overnight.
it caused a big problem, didn't it? I mean, people were literally, sort of starving because of it, right?
Absolutely, because imagine you wake up one morning and you say, "Oh, okay, you cannot use those bills anymore.
Yeah.
You just have till the end of this month to, like deposit those bills and like get, the bills with like bigger numbers." So it was done mainly to curb corruption. Like that was the reason that was presented by the government, and they called it demonetization. So it was done to tame corruption because people who are in businesses, of course, like people who are working in IT or like, working with multinational companies, they are getting paychecks and the taxes deducted before they get the salaries, and like people like us. But then, for example, my dad and my brother, they run a restaurant in India, right? So businessmen, they do their own taxes. Of course, a lot of people pay cash to you. A lot of people pay by card. It depends. So it was mainly done to curb corruption, but it led to many, many, many problems because there were people like poor people. They were, and only you could banks were not even equipped to have such a long line of people exchanging
Yeah.
their bills and getting higher bills. So yeah, they stood in lines for like nights and nights to do it, and they were literally starving because they didn't have money, because they couldn't use the same bills to get food or things that they could 24 hours
So
before.
presumably BSV could be, quite useful in that sort of situation where the government's, doing kind of daft policies that are really hurting people, to have an
Oh
alternative
yes.
currency to fall back on. Yeah.
Yeah, if BSV was prevalent in that time in India, I think that would have been great. And if it
And
had happened once, something like that can happen again. So yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It shows intent, doesn't it, by the government? Then they're not really thinking
exactly.
about the well-being of their people.
Especially with
And
such a small period of time, like a month. I
well,
mean, 30
that was the
days.
problem with it, I think. If they did it over the course of a year, maybe it'd be all right. But I mean, do you think there's a problem with inflation in India at the minute? Is that the reason why they're changing the bills for higher ones? Or, we've certainly got a really bad inflation problem here. I don't know whether it's affecting that part of the world at the minute. I assume it probably is.
It is. I think inflation definitely is happening there. I don't think it is happening at a pace where at the pace of
Europe's
US
really,
right now.
suffering.
But
Yeah.
definitely there is inflation there. Inflation has been happening gradually in India over the years. Everything is becoming more and more expensive. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. So what do you make of what's going on in the world at the minute, Nidhi? How because as a
How long
journalist
have you
you
got?
must
That's
read
very loaded.
everything. You must have to be absolutely well read and well up on world events currently.
That's a very loaded question, but yeah. So I think what's going on, we are definitely going through a huge transition, very, very big transition. That's what I think, like collectively. Um, and financially, I think we are in a very, very challenging spot right now globally, and I think it's going to get more difficult over at least the next couple of years. I'm frankly not seeing it getting better anytime soon. Even in the US, like I'm literally observing what's happening. Things are so expensive right now, so expensive because we had like this global pandemic, and then everyone is still like everyone is still reeling under the impacts of it, and now we have this war going on, which is again jacking up the prices and the level of fear and paranoia in the world. And for example, my best friend, she's from Lebanon, and what's happening in Lebanon right now is just like it's out of the movie, scary, like people are literally basically punching each other in their faces to buy a loaf of bread.
Yikes.
So basically there's bidding going on for a loaf of bread.
That's terrifying.
Those
Yeah.
people are starving in the situations that they've
Yeah,
been
my
put
friend and her
into.
family are migrating to the States. Like they've already started their paperwork, but because
That's coming here. I really do think that's coming to the States too. I mean, as soon as the currency goes,
yeah,
and I mean the US dollar is on its last leg. So
yes,
we're gonna have food shortages and all that stuff in the US too, I think. I mean, this is one of the reasons we're traveling internationally. I mean, you can't escape it anywhere you go right now, but just definitely looking into like where where can you go that you have a little bit more sustainability? So it's coming everywhere, and that violence of people is really, really scary. I actually, I won't go into what I've been looking into, researching of my own. I will, and we can take it out, okay? Edit this. But if you've ever heard, and actually one of the people that I learned about this from is an Indian man. He did it under extreme medical scrutiny in a room, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on camera for like months at a time. And he's a breatharian. Doesn't eat, doesn't drink, and doesn't urinate or defecate either. Which I know that sounds crazy, but I am, like, from my research, I believe that eating food and drinking is also another thing that they did to control us, the consciousness of a human. I don't know at what point we started eating food, but I definitely don't think we have to eat. I think it's something that we do. And obviously people think that they're going to starve, and people are starving, but there are also people that if you do certain things to your body, like breath work and sun gazing and different things that they do to activate your ability to draw nourishment from photosynthesis and from, like, plants do. I know it sounds crazy, but like, I fully believe that I was researching this because of my knowledge that they are poisoning and depopulating through the food supply and the water and all that. So I was like, how do you get away from that? How do you? And so it led me to researching breatharianism, because I was like, how, that's one way. If you can activate your ability for your body to do either, because once you achieve that, you can eat by choice. You don't have to eat. I really just wanted to learn it so that if the food supply went down, I didn't have to go out into the world and fight people to find food. I could sit at home and like meditate or whatever you do. I haven't taken the classes or whatever, and that sounds silly, but most people will think it's insane. But I really do think that we don't have to go through all of the violence and turmoil that's coming when there is food shortages. We don't. People
There's
just don't.
A guy, an Israeli guy called, is it Ray Mayor?
Yeah, Ray Moore wrote a book, Year Without Food. I have that at home. I've never read it. I almost brought it on this trip to read on our 8-hour flight, but I had my 3-year-old, so there's not a lot of reading that can be done on a plane. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think about often, actually, is food scarcity. And if there's no food, how are people? I'm more afraid of the way people are going to act to each other than I am the grocery stores being closed. So it's just really crazy. But I mean, your consciousness is so powerful. So if you believe you're going to starve to death and die, you're going to starve and die. Your body will do that. It'll shut down because that's your belief system. But if you believe that you can activate your ability to, eat the air or whatever, then people are sustaining themselves for years at a time not eating. It's not some thing. So I think we really do, as a collective species, need to educate ourselves about these things, because think about how powerful we could be if we didn't need their food and their water and their bullshit, and you could reject it and say, no, I'm not going to eat today because you have toxic food in my area. I'm going to wait until I can find something, that's fresh off a tree or whatever. I don't know. It's so empowering to me to think that we wouldn't need to eat. It's coming. Food scarcity and all that, with the fighting of trying to fight for food, is so coming. So what is the solution to that? I don't know. But me personally, I've definitely been looking into alternative, consciousness ways of thinking. So that blew my mind. The whole breatharian stuff was one of my biggest awakenings of like, holy shit, what? Like, what are we capable of? We don't even know all the dormant technologies and abilities that are lying within our bodies. So that was one of the most fascinating things I've learned.
India is a very spiritual country anyway, though, isn't it? I mean, meditation and all the gods, and it's like Ganesha, the elephant god, and etc. I mean, it's a highly prevalent spiritual country. So how do you think along those lines that people within the cities and people within the more urban areas compare in that respect of actually how they look at food, how they look at the ways that they sustain themselves?
They definitely eat more healthy.
So Okay, the term spirituality or yoga or meditation, I think it is a part of everyone's life in India. It is just a part of life
It's
because
always been
yeah,
there.
fortunately everyone has grown up with it. Like, you can call it religion or you can call it something, but there is a spiritual element to the practices and rituals that everyone, including me, has grown up with or been exposed to. So it's a part of everyone's life, urban or rural. But having said that, the globalization or westernization is taking very, very deep roots in India. Very. All the fast food restaurants from US are in India now. Even though the food is much tastier in India, I have to admit. But things are becoming very westernized. So I see here in the US, people spend $10,000 and they go on like 4-day yoga retreat, right? Because the value of yoga is so profound in the West. Like they are like, oh my God, this can save our life. In India, because it exists on such a fundamental level, it's kind of like some people just take it for granted.
It's like brushing your teeth or something.
Yeah, it's like because, oh, we have it, okay, what's the big deal about it? But it is very much a part of everyone's life, even if they believe in God or not. That's fine. Like, I have always been a very spiritual person, more of a spiritual person. I'm not a very ritualistic person when it comes to like gods and stuff, but I was always like that. I mean, because of my personal reasons, I practice yoga and meditation every day. Whenever I stop it, it never works out. If I'm doing it even like regularly for 10 days, I see like immense benefits. So I do it. But collectively, I think a lot of mixing is happening. West is desperately embracing the East. East is desperately aping the West. And there's just too much confusion and chaos all around, I feel.
It's such a shame as well, because we all, like, really, when we logically and rationally think about this, fast food is one of the problems with the world anyway. And this is why we're going to end up having a food shortage, is because of fast food restaurants, people like McDonald's and KFC and all of those. And if people, I mean, this is difficult as well, like you say, because it's been indoctrinated into the West that this is how we kind of, it's a special, well, it's not even a special treat. It's like a daily thing for a lot of people where they go to a McDonald's and they have a burger because they can't be bothered to actually go and buy real vegetables and learn how to cook.
Real stuff. They make it as cheap as possible so that's all you can afford.
Yeah. But that is where the one of the real problems is. So if we could really kind of re-educate the West into more of the Eastern philosophy on food, that would be actually really beneficial.
Very beneficial.
Yeah,
sure.
very, very beneficial. And I think it is starting to happen. Definitely it is. I see it. I've made so many friends in the US. The reason they've become my close friends is because they are open to it, and because there are so many things from the West that I like. Obviously, that's why I'm married to a man who's not Indian, and I have so many friends who are not Indians. And but when it comes to food, yes, I'm not trying to sound biased or trying to sound pompous, but I think everyone should learn from the East how to eat.
Oh, I completely agree.
Absolutely, because I'm a vegetarian by choice. I've always been a vegetarian, and it's a personal thing. I don't have anything against people who eat meat, but a lot of people, when they find out I'm vegetarian, the first thing they say, "Oh my God, what do you eat all the time?" But
there's so much variety.
when they become like friends and like when they get to know me, honestly, there's like no dearth of recipes that I can keep cooking for the rest of my life, because there is so much you can make with vegetables. So much. But I get it. It's because, I grew up in India. It's very easy for me. East is very good when it comes to self-awareness or eating or maintaining like a routine. Definitely.
And
That is my strength.
the herbs and the spices that are
Yes.
available as well that you actually use, and the way that you combine them is just phenomenal. Especially when I love cooking traditional Indian recipes, which I find, and I go and get like a clove and stuff, and just put them in, fry them up in the. It's just the aromas that come off a lot of those spices as well, and they're so good for you.
Medicinal,
Just completely.
They are, and but see what's happening right now. It has become such a marketing. I wouldn't call it marketing gimmick, but you know what Casey was saying. These companies are making money off of just like building products that are so natural. So, for example, you go to Whole Foods or like any healthy stores here. Oh my God, they're like in the like supplement section, right? So they have like so many bottles of like turmeric and like black pepper or cinnamon, and I don't have anything against it. And I tell my American friends, because they consume it, and so many friends of mine have transformed now because I could educate them. I tell them not to take those pills, and I'll tell you why. Because if you want to consume cinnamon, get the fresh cinnamon sticks.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Boil some water.
Did you know that most supplement companies, if you follow the money of them, they're actually owned by pharmaceutical companies?
They are. Yes, they are.
Like most supplement like lines are super toxic,
and a hell of a lot of it comes from China as well.
Exactly. So you just read my mind. I was about to say that they come from China, and the moment anything has been formed into a pill, obviously there's going to be added elements there that you don't want to put in your body unless it's really needed. Like I take vitamin D. I know I need it. I do it. I take it. I live on the East Coast. I'm vegetarian. I don't get enough sunlight here, so I take it because there's acute deficiency of vitamin D in my body. Like some things make sense, but I'm like, just boil some water, put some fresh cinnamon sticks in it, and let it boil, and please strain it and have it. That's the way you should consume cinnamon or turmeric or ginger. Please use fresh ginger. So things like that. But seriously, like these stores are making money. These brands are making money. Like anything healthy is so expensive. It just doesn't make sense.
And you're right about the excipients and stuff. Like a lot of the time you can take a new supplement and not know why it's not agreeing with you. And it's just because of the excipients in it.
Really, we're going into education here. And this is something that's really wrong with the education system, where actually when I was at school, we used to do something called home economics. And that was quite, I don't know if they still do it or not, but we would learn to cook. And
not so much, Diddy.
Well, the pizzas and upside down pineapple pies and things. But if I always feel that if the education system was just literally, if we could revamp that in such a way that we did teach young children about nutrition and the right nutrition, then we would be starting to become on the right path from a very early age. And then we would have such a healthier society, so much more vibrancy and so much more variety of what they eat.
And you just don't make time for it.
Well, it's not even about time. It's about lack of knowledge and education.
Well, that's why we don't make time for it in the curriculum.
Yeah, but I see. I've broke my heart at times over seeing young children who have literally been brought up on chicken nuggets and baked beans and Coca-Cola, and their teeth are black, and they're like 6 years old. And this is it. Just I just really wished that there was somebody somewhere that could just bang these guys' heads together in government and just get it through their heads that literally we need to educate people so that they can start eating properly, and then that will get rid of so many ailments that are diagnosed that are basically because we're poisoning the kids through the food.
The doctors get 2 hours of nutrition in medical school. Like they will not talk about the foods that feed illness. I have a son that has asthma. That is bronchial pulmonary candidiasis, candida of the lungs. It is not a lung problem. It is a gut problem that from the continued use of steroids allowed the candida infection to move to other parts of the body and infect the lungs. I tried to say that to my pulmonary specialist of my son when he had an asthma attack, and they literally pulled me into a room. And because my son's dad was more on their side of let's get him on an inhaled steroid and an inhaled inhalers and singular and all the other bullshit they wanted to give him, they literally, if I hadn't said in that room that I will give him the medication, they were going to take my rights right there in the hospital.
Yeah, they would do that here. Yeah,
I tried to tell them we need to address the candida in his body and whatever, and they just literally, I mean, like, tried to take my child. I mean, they don't
like being undermined by.
Yeah, this is their piggy bank. It's the food that they've poisoned with the GMOs in that documentary, Genetic Roulette, The Gamble of Our Lives, that makes you sick, that then feeds the doctors so they can sell their pills. It's all, the system is not broken. There's nothing broken in their minds about what's happening. It's all by design. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I feel you, Diddy, but that's got to be us. We have to do it. We can't, nobody else is going to do it. And I don't want to go out knocking anybody's heads together, but we are sure building, you know, software that's going to allow the holistic dietitian to share their content in a monetized way that they can support themselves, which will allow it to flourish even more. You know what I mean? That's what we need. We can't look to any government bodies for anything anymore.
No. Well, yeah, because
they're done. In my mind, like, they need to all be, I'm not an anarchist by any means, but we need to completely abolish all of the current people that are in power and start over with new people and new systems somehow. Like, every single person that's in power, for the most part, is...
The financial incentives have to be changed.
Yeah, because if you look at the healthcare sector here, I mean, anything that is holistic or natural, anything outside of the traditional medicine, you know, like spectrum, insurance doesn't even cover it.
No.
Yeah. That's why I don't have insurance. Because I wouldn't if I'm broken and bleeding on the side of the highway, emergency medicine, yes, please fix me. Please.
Yes.
But when it comes to chronic or acute something, I always, nothing I would use or go to is covered by insurance. So there's no point in paying for it.
Yeah, because if you want to go to, like, even therapy, for example, right? So many people suffered. Like, there was a point during the pandemic lockdowns and stuff, even I was like because my parents fell sick. My dad was hospitalized for a long time in India. So it caused a lot of anxiety and stress. If you want to go for a therapist, your insurance will never cover it. Even if insurance covers it, it's very expensive. So nothing holistic or nothing healthy is even accessible.
Allowed in. Yeah.
So how do I even go and convince someone who's making like $7 or $8 an hour to really go to Trader Joe's or like organic fresh produce and like buy those veggies or fruits, because it is so expensive. You know, like a beef burger is like $2. And if I tell that guy to go and like buy like a big bunch of spinach or like apples, it's going to cost him like $10-11.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why the foundation is not there, you know? And
yeah, we're in big trouble. I mean, we are globally in big trouble with the whole food supply, because not only is it, you know, expensive, but it's also been extremely poisoned. All the animals, I know the vegetables too, but I mean,
well, the scientists at the moment are trying to put mRNA into certain food types, and I know spinach, which is one of my favorites, is one of them that they're trying
not
to
just
put
the vaccine.
mRNA in it. Yeah.
No, they are vaccinating the lettuce.
They're trying to do. Yeah, it was an article that I read. It was somewhere in the States. Something to do with Gates, and it's purely like they're trying to put mRNA into vegetables, like the ones that are used the most, like tomatoes.
I heard romaine.
And
romaine.
And it's just an absolute. This is another thing as well. I love science, but I do think that science has gone the wrong way in a really sinister kind of way as well. Yeah, and
Well,
that again
that's
is something that really concerns me. Is why have we gone such an evil route kind of thing in that respect?
Do you think it has to do with? Do you think it is because of the rampant population?
I don't think it is. I think it is purely greed, because I think that there's, in a sense, I think there is plenty of food for everybody if the food was used in the right way.
Absolutely.
And it's not used in the right way at all.
Overpopulation is a total lie. It really is. There's so much better we could do to create more sustainable food structures. It's just not being allowed. They just
I don't think population. I don't think population could be a problem for countries like US and UK, because I'm from India. I anyway think these are underpopulated countries. There are barely any people here. So
we can terraform deserts and turn a dry, arid area into a luscious green area. So there is no excuse at all apart from this corporate greed. And I think that is literally what it is. Vertical farming nowadays, there's no reason for us not to have greens at all because of vertical farming. So it's not about space either, and that's not even using soil. So you can grow things and minimal amounts of water as well with vertical farming and hydroponics and stuff. So
the food supply has to be revamped by getting rid of the people that are creating the food structures. There's, like I said, there's so many permaculture things and whatnot around the world with the wolfing network and stuff that would blow up and flourish so much more if there wasn't so many hoops and red tape and crazy expenses to have for even being a holistic provider. There really is. They make it so hard. All the certifications you have to get to be a certified organic farm and all this stuff. It's insane. So if all these structures weren't in place that make no sense.
The seeds that you have to rebuy every year.
Yeah, and they weren't genetically modifying the seeds.
Is that why the farmers in India have had such a hard time? Because they've brought in all these regulations and they've ramped up prices of seeds and things as well. Because they've been free to sort of farm the land for hundreds and hundreds of years, generations and generations, and then so the government have come in with all these regulations. And is that what a lot of the problems and the protests were about for Indian farmers?
So not entirely. So the basic setup of farmers in India is most of them, I would say 99.99% of them are not very well educated, right? They know how to farm, they know how to create the produce, and that's what they're good at. But when it comes to, for example, doing all these, protocols and paperwork and stuff, so they have assigned middlemen. They call them middlemen. They are like mediators between the government and farmers. So these middlemen literally take away most of the money of the farmers as commission, whatever they are doing. And that's what keeps them poor, all their life. In the end, middlemen have made the money, the government has gotten their money, and the farmers are dying, they are suffering and they are in pain.
I was just going to say, farmers should be some of our most rich people out there. But
exactly.
That's important. That is another way that they're destroying the ability for farmers to make money, is destroying their soil.
Right. But the quality of soil is definitely degrading all over the world. I don't know if you know it or not, but the studies are saying by 2050, the soil degradation will happen at a very, very fast pace. So one's a lot of people are not talking about it. There is this one yoga teacher in India who's talking massively about it. In fact, right now he's doing.
That's the guru.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You know that? Okay. So
he's amazing.
Right now he's doing a tour of Europe to create that awareness. And I really like most of his campaigns. I really, really like him as a person. But what's happening is the middlemen are taking most of the money. And the recent proposition by the government against which farmers were protesting is the government wants to privatize the farming in India completely. So the farmers are going to lose their entire autonomy and, any say over what they want to farm, how much they want to grow, and at what price they want to sell the things at. So the government was kind of price fixing their produce for them. So it has more disadvantages compared to advantages. So that's why they're protesting against it. Yeah. That's why I really, really want to see someone building an app in the farming sector on BSV blockchain.
I mean,
Me too.
yes.
Somebody.
So an exchange would be something that would be really helpful.
Like a
for
marketplace,
them.
yeah. Like a BSV digital marketplace, and where you could track the entire supply chain, and the farmer could really see, and farmer could set the price.
Get rid of that middleman.
Yeah, get rid of the middleman entirely. And I know one company recently, there's a group, like a startup company. I think they are building it on Ethereum. I really want to get in touch with them and see, because you never know. Some people, when they really find out about the technology, they are more open to transition.
Yeah, completely. Especially a lot of developers who have been building on Ethereum have come over to BSV because of the fees and the pricing and everything, and they see that actually it is really more a lot more versatile than Ethereum could ever be.
Especially the number of transactions you can do.
Yeah. I mean, didn't we hit 3.8 gigabytes yesterday?
I think it was like 11 million transactions in a 24-hour period, wasn't it?
Wow.
Just 2 days ago. Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's so cool.
Well, no, not a patch on what Craig wants.
But are we not doing like 70% of crypto transactions? Is it 70% of crypto transactions are literally BSV now or something in the whole ecosystem?
I don't know whether it's counting all of the cryptocurrencies, but like I think most of them make up such a tiny proportion that they may as well be. Yes.
Is there anything that you really want to touch on, Nidhi? Like to promote your, give us the address, the link, where we can find your articles, where we can find you.
Sure. So I think stay tuned for a lot of content, BSV related content on CoinGeek and on LinkedIn. That's where I post most of my stuff. And I'm actually in the process of creating a website, which will be up and running very soon. So you'd be able to find all my content related to podcasts or interviews or articles over there. And recently, I have launched a podcast that I will be doing with Rohan in India every month.
This sounds really exciting. Yeah.
Every month.
So when does that start?
It started 2 months ago. So we have so far done only 2 episodes, but it was more like, just preparing ourselves and getting in the groove. So we did it a couple of weeks ago, and the next one is coming after 2 weeks. So
this is BSV for India.
So this will be a BSV India live. We'll be doing it live, and I can definitely share the link with you guys beforehand.
Please do.
Please join and ask us questions. And and we will eventually be having guests that we could talk to, and it'll be a live stream, so anyone can ask us questions, which we will address. We really haven't decided the theme per se, but I think we will be touching upon the relevant topics at that given point of time of the podcast. Like recent one, we talked a lot about the crypto tax and the advertisement guidelines, and we also talked about SPV.
Is it going to be an English language podcast?
Yes,
or is it going to
be in English? It is in English. However, if there is a viewer who asks us a question in Hindi, we will answer it in Hindi, because that's the whole point of CG India, because I really want to make it accessible to people who cannot speak in English.
Yeah, completely.
So that is something very exciting, and we'll be doing it every month.
Nidhi, you are freaking awesome.
Power to the women in BSV.
I mean, it's wonderful to meet another absolute kick-ass woman in BSV. I think it's terrific.
I really appreciate it.
You should definitely come on. I mean, we're inviting lots of
come on and guest present with us whenever you like.
Okay. That'll be awesome. I would actually love that. But before actually you let me go and I let you guys go, I just had a question out of curiosity for you all. What inspired each of you to join the BSV, if I can ask? Okay.
Yeah.
But like, what was the first thing, like, for example, Ruth, what was the first thing for you that you thought, okay, I'm going to do this?
Well, I got into Bitcoin when it was, like 2011,
Oh,
2010.
right. Yeah.
So like a really long time ago. So I've been following it for years and years, but I was always a big blocker. And when it split off, I actually got into Dash a bit, which is where I met Diddy, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But then, it would just seem very, very, very obvious, very, very quickly that BSV was the real deal. Because I saw Craig speak, I think the Arnhem speech was the one that really clicked for me. And I was like, oh, this is like a good human. And I will follow a good human anywhere, And that's really what it boiled down to. I could tell that he had a heart and a soul, and a lot of the people in crypto don't.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And what about you, Diddy?
Okay, so about 2016, I was looking for pay-per-click advertising, and that's how I came across crypto. And Dash was a kind of thing that I found, and then I found Roger Ver, and then followed literally the splits and the forks, came across Craig, and then Theory of Bitcoin. And Theory of Bitcoin was what did it for me. I watched that series twice. So that's 100 of hours of watching Ryan and Craig talk about every single aspect of Bitcoin and going through the Bitcoin white paper. And I just found the whole thing fascinating. And I just really liked the way that Craig answered all the questions. I also did see the BBC interview in I think it was like 2015 or something, but I didn't really think much about it until I actually came across him again.
Nice.
And for me, he just seems really authentic. So, but yeah, it was the Theory of Bitcoin series that did it for me. And we I've said this several times before. I was asked basically to get a group of the women together that I knew who were interested in BSV from Shem on the BSV channel, because he wanted to literally do a podcast with us. And I think there was 7 of us. And that's the first time we've had so many women sort of to discuss Bitcoin SV. So that's where we kind of started. But yeah, it was definitely Theory of Bitcoin that got me. It's a phenomenal series. I would advocate for anybody and everybody to actually just go and spend 50 hours listening to it.
Spend 50 hours. Not much for now.
50 hours.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. That's awesome. And what about you, Casey?
Well, I had a profound awakening at the end of 2011-ish, and I watched, I was getting ready for work one day, and I watched a documentary that exposed the whole global financial fractional reserve banking scam. And it sent me into a research spiral that was just like, what is going on this planet? And it led me actually to the global currency reset. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that with the Iraqi dinar and the Zimbabwe and the dong and all these things. And so I actually own a lot of paper currencies from other countries that I was thinking when the global financial scam thing blew up, that these currencies I held from other countries would reevaluate at a higher value than what they are now, due to the natural resources in the countries that are not being acknowledged and exploited and whatnot. So I actually started my journey in the whole currency thing in paper currencies. And then when I found out about Bitcoin and Ethereum, I realized that it was happening in the digital space and not paper currencies. So I downloaded Coinbase off, in between that, I had gotten into digital marketing, and I met this multi-millionaire digital marketer, and he bought $500 worth of essential oils from me and gave me a debit card that had a Visa emblem on it that I could go to the ATM and pull out cash that was coming from his Bitcoin account. I was like, what? How are you doing this? So he showed me Coinbase, and I bought some Ethereum, and I made a bunch of money in that real quick, and then I just started diversifying.
Wow, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah, and we should regroup again. Thank you, guys.
Definitely.
Bye.